In 1992, Stella Liebig, who was 79 years old, was parked in her car after going through a McDonald's drive-thru. She opened up the cup of coffee and spilt it on her lap. She admitted that she was partially at fault for spilling the coffee and causing burns. So why did the jury return a $2.9 million verdict in her favor? She suffered burns to 16% of her body and third-degree burns to 6% of her body, including her genitals and her butt, which required painful surgeries. She later asked McDonald's to just pay for her out-of-pocket expenses, roughly $20,000. McDonald's offered to pay only $800. She took them to court and got a $2.9 million verdict. McDonald's got hit with such a high verdict because they served their coffee at an extremely high temperature, a lot higher than industry standards. They served their coffee at about 190 degrees. Just for comparison, at 150 degrees, it would take 2 seconds for you to get third-degree burns if you spilled coffee on yourself. So we see how hot the coffee was that McDonald's was serving. They did this because McDonald's believed that people wait to drink their coffee once they get to the office or once they return home after buying coffee at a drive-thru. So they thought people wanted their coffee piping hot. McDonald's thought this was more important than protecting their customers or the consumers. First, the jury awarded $200,000 to Mrs. Liebig for her compensatory damages. This was for her medical expenses and her pain and suffering. Now, they discounted this by 20% because they found her to be 20% at fault for opening the coffee cup and spilling the coffee on herself. So this $200,000 was reduced to $160,000. Then they awarded Mrs. Liebig $2.7 million in punitive damages. Punitive damages are to punish or teach the company a lesson for ignoring a dangerous situation. The jury sent McDonald's a message. Don't ignore your customers, don't ignore their complaints or their injuries, or you're going to be punished for it. Now, the jury awarded Mrs. Liebig $2.7 million in punitive damages. Why this figure? This is how much McDonald's makes in just 2 days of coffee sales. So the jury wanted to send McDonald's a lesson. The jury wanted to punish McDonald's for ignoring over 700 claims that their coffee was served too hot. As a final note, Mrs. Liebig did not receive the full $2.9 million that she was awarded. What's common in these cases, when the defendant loses, they threaten to appeal. Now, everyone knows this takes years of time and thousands of dollars to fight. So this allows them to settle or negotiate the verdict and offer a lesser amount. In this case, Mrs. Liebig finally settled for about $600,000. After paying attorney's fees and her medical expenses, she probably pocketed around $300,000. And this is the famous story of the McDonald's hot coffee case.